Some people think powerful men fall in love slowly. They don't. The dangerous ones decide in silence. The first time Vincent Moretti saw my face, 3 men stopped breathing in the middle of a meeting because nobody dared interrupt the silence that followed. I didn't know any of that then. At 26 years old, my biggest concern was whether the landlord would finally shut off the heat in our apartment before winter ended. The radiator beside my bed rattled like it was dying, pushing weak warmth into the tiny Brooklyn apartment while snow tapped softly against the fire escape outside. I sat cross-legged on the floor beside my mother's oxygen machine, editing engagement photos on my old laptop while cold coffee turned bitter beside me. 2 in the morning. Another deadline. Another client asking for discounts because photography isn't real work. My shoulders ached from carrying camera equipment across Manhattan all day, but I kept working anyway. Medical bills didn't care about exhaustion. "Claire," my mother whispered weakly from the couch behind me. "You need sleep." I smiled without turning around. "Sleep is expensive in New York." She laughed softly at that. The sound made my chest tighten because it had become rarer lately. The machine beside her hummed steadily. Outside, sirens echoed somewhere far downtown. Normal city sounds. Normal life. That's what I thought I still had. My phone buzzed across the hardwood floor. Unknown number. I almost ignored it until another message appeared immediately after. Then another. Unknown, your work has been selected for a private event. Generous compensation offered. I frowned. Scam probably. Manhattan was full of rich men pretending exposure was payment. I tossed the phone aside and returned to editing. The bride in the photo laughed beneath golden December lights while her fiancé looked at her like she hung the moon itself. People loved photos like that. Safe love. Predictable love. Not the kind that changed your life at gunpoint. 40 minutes later, someone knocked on my apartment door. 3 slow knocks. Calm. Controlled. Not drunk neighbors. Not delivery guys. Something about it made my stomach tighten instantly. I checked the clock. 2:47 a.m. Nobody good knocked on doors that late. My mother stirred behind me. "Claire. It's probably nothing." But my voice sounded thinner than I wanted. The knocking came again. Slow. Patient. Like whoever stood outside already knew I would open the door eventually. I crossed the apartment quietly and looked through the peephole. My breath caught. 3 men stood in the hallway wearing dark wool coats that looked too expensive for our building. One of them glanced up directly toward the peephole like he knew I was watching. Tall. Broad shoulders. Black gloves. The kind of stillness that screamed authority. Fear crawled slowly up my spine. "Can I help you?" I asked through the door. The tallest man stepped forward slightly. "Miss Claire Bennett?" "Who's asking?" A pause. Then the answer that changed everything. "Mr. Moretti would like to meet you." I almost laughed from nerves. "I think you have the wrong apartment." "We don't." His tone stayed calm. Professional. Almost polite. Somehow that felt worse. "I'm not interested in whatever this is." Another silence. Then the man reached slowly into his coat. My pulse jumped hard until he pulled out a single photograph instead of a weapon. He slid it beneath the door. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It was one of my own photos. A self-portrait I'd posted months ago. Snow falling in my hair. My camera hanging from my shoulder. Smiling without realizing someone was watching closely enough to save it. On the back, written in elegant black ink, were 6 words. "Bring her to me." Untouched. I didn't know it yet, but somewhere across Manhattan, the most feared man in the city was staring at the exact same photograph while deciding whether meeting me would save him, or destroy him completely. There is a specific kind of fear that comes when rich men know your full name before you ever tell them. I stared at the photograph in my shaking hands while cold air slipped through the cracks around our apartment windows. The hallway outside stayed completely silent now. Too silent. Like the men behind the door already knew they had one. My mother coughed softly behind me, pulling me back to reality. "Claire," she whispered. "Who is it?" I folded the photograph quickly before she could see my expression. "Nobody important." That was a lie. Every instinct in my body screamed that Vincent Moretti was very important. I just did not know why yet. The men outside waited another 30 seconds before one of them spoke again. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Moretti dislikes being ignored." Calm voice. Controlled. Educated. Not criminals from movies shouting threats in dark alleys. Somehow that made everything worse. I swallowed hard. "Tell Mr. Moretti I am not interested." Silence. Then footsteps. Slow ones fading down the hallway until finally the building became quiet again. I stayed frozen at the door another full minute before checking the peephole. Empty hallway. My lungs finally worked again. But the fear stayed. I locked the deadbolt twice before pulling the curtains shut over every window in the apartment. Suddenly our tiny home felt exposed. Fragile. Like paper walls against something enormous. My mother watched me carefully from the couch. "Claire." I turned too quickly. "What?" "You are pale." I forced a smile that did not feel real. Long day. But she knew me too well. Mothers always do. "Who is Vincent Moretti?" The sound of his name in her voice sent another chill through me. "You heard that?" I heard enough. She adjusted the blanket around her shoulders slowly. "That name is on the news sometimes." Mine was not the kind of family that followed crime stories, but everybody in New York knew certain names anyway. Real estate empires. Political donations. Luxury hotels. Rumors whispered online at 3 in the morning. Vincent Moretti belonged to that world. A man people discussed carefully. Like saying his name too loudly might somehow summon him. I sat beside her on the couch and stared at the photograph again. Snow in my hair. Camera strap over my shoulder. Smiling. Completely unaware someone powerful enough to send men across the city at almost 3 in the morning had been staring at my face. "Claire," my mother said quietly, "whatever this is, do not let rich men make decisions for you." I wanted to promise her that. I really did. But my phone buzzed again. Before I could answer. "Unknown, tomorrow. 10 a.m. Blackwood Gallery, Manhattan. Come willingly." Another message appeared immediately. "Unknown, Mr. Moretti prefers cooperation." I turned the phone face down instantly. My heartbeat felt uneven now. Too fast. Too loud. My mother noticed anyway. "You are not going." I laughed nervously. "I am definitely not going." But neither of us sounded convinced. The next morning Manhattan looked silver beneath freezing rain. Steam rose from subway grates while yellow cabs splashed through crowded intersections. Normal city chaos. Normal people hurrying to normal jobs. Yet every black SUV I passed made my stomach tighten. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. Until I reached the coffee shop near my client meeting and saw the same black sedan parked across the street. Engine running. Tinted windows. Waiting. My pulse stumbled. Maybe it had been there all morning. Maybe it was coincidence. Then the rear passenger door opened slowly. And for the first time in my life, I saw Vincent Moretti in person. He stepped onto the sidewalk wearing a charcoal overcoat dark enough to blend into the rain itself. Tall. Controlled. Beautiful in the terrifying way winter storms are beautiful. People moved around him instinctively without touching him once. His pale blue eyes found mine across the street immediately, like they had always known exactly where I would be. Then he smiled slightly. Not warm. Not cruel. Certain. And in that moment, I realized something that frightened me far more than the men at my apartment door. Vincent Moretti had not sent people to bring me to him anymore. He had come himself. The strange thing about fear is that sometimes it arrives quietly. Not as panic. Not as screaming. Just a single realization settling into your bones while freezing rain slides down Manhattan windows. Vincent Moretti crossed the street without looking for traffic because traffic stopped for men like him. Taxi drivers slowed instinctively. Pedestrians moved aside before he even reached them. Power clung to him like expensive cologne and winter smoke. I should have walked away. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me to leave. Instead, I stood frozen outside the coffee shop, gripping my camera bag so tightly my fingers hurt. Vincent stopped 3 feet in front of me. Up close, he looked even more dangerous somehow. Early 30s maybe. Dark hair brushed neatly away from a face too composed to belong to someone normal. Pale blue eyes studied me carefully beneath the gray Manhattan sky. Not hungry. Not flirtatious. Observing. Like he had spent a long time imagining this exact moment. Claire Bennett, he said softly. His voice carried the faint edge of an Italian accent beneath perfect American English. You are difficult to meet. My mouth went dry instantly. You sent people to my apartment at 3 a.m. A small pause. And yet here you are. Rain tapped against the black sedan behind him. 2 men remained inside without moving. Watching everything through tinted glass. I glanced around the street, automatically searching for normalcy. Somebody laughing near a food cart. Steam rising from sewer grates. A woman walking her dog in designer boots. The city kept moving while my life tilted sideways. What do you want from me? I asked. Vincent looked at me for a long second before answering. Coffee. I blinked. What? You were about to go inside. His eyes shifted briefly toward the shop behind me. I dislike having important conversations in the rain. Important conversations. Like we already knew each other. Like I belonged in whatever world he came from. I am not going anywhere with you. You already are. His tone stayed calm. Matter of fact. That should have made me angrier than it did. Instead, confusion kept pushing against my fear. Vincent opened the coffee shop door himself and stepped aside, waiting for me to enter first. The gesture felt almost old-fashioned. Polite in a way that completely clashed with the terrifying stories attached to his name online. I hesitated anyway. Claire. The way he said my name stopped me cold. Quiet. Controlled. Familiar somehow. If I intended to harm you, we would not be standing in public discussing espresso. Fair point. Annoyingly fair. Against every logical decision available to me, I walked inside. Warm air smelling like cinnamon and roasted coffee beans wrapped around us instantly. Conversations lowered the moment Vincent entered. Not completely silent. Just softer. Careful. The barista behind the counter visibly straightened. Vincent noticed without reacting. Men like him were probably used to rooms changing when they walked into them. We sat near the back windows while rain blurred the city outside into silver streaks. I kept my coat on. Ready to leave. Vincent removed black leather gloves slowly before folding them beside his untouched coffee cup. His hands were steady. Elegant. No wedding ring. You have been watching me, I said quietly. Yes. No denial. No shame either. The honesty unsettled me more than lies would have. Why? He studied me again before reaching into his coat pocket. My heartbeat stumbled until he placed another photograph gently on the table between us. This one was older. Faded around the edges. A little girl standing beside a woman outside a tiny Brooklyn flower shop almost 20 years ago. I stared at the child in the picture. Blonde hair. Missing front tooth. Small winter coat zipped crookedly. Me. Cold moved through my chest slowly. Where did you get this? Vincent leaned back slightly. I have been looking for you for a very long time. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small. Too warm. My pulse roared in my ears while rain hammered harder against the glass outside. I do not understand. His pale eyes softened for the first time since I met him. Just slightly. Barely visible. But enough to change his entire face. I know, he said quietly. That is why you are coming with me. People always say your life changes in an instant. Mine changed somewhere between a faded photograph and the way Vincent Moretti looked at me like he had already memorized every expression on my face. The coffee shop suddenly felt too loud. Espresso machines hissing. Cups clattering. Rain striking the windows hard enough to sound like static. Yet somehow his voice still cut through everything. Calm. Precise. Dangerous. I stared at the old photograph on the table while my pulse hammered unevenly in my throat. You have the wrong person, I whispered. Vincent did not even blink. I do not. I have never met you before. No, he said quietly. But your mother met me. Cold spread through my chest instantly. My mother. Nobody brought up my mother casually. Not strangers. Not men with security teams waiting outside in black sedans. I sat back slowly. How do you know my mother? Vincent watched me carefully before answering. 20 years ago, there was a fire in Brooklyn. My stomach tightened immediately. You remember it? Of course I remembered it. Not clearly. Just flashes. Smoke. Sirens. My mother carrying me through freezing air while people screamed somewhere outside our apartment building. I had been 6 years old. My mother never talks about that night, I said carefully. Most survivors do not. The word survivors landed heavily between us. Vincent glanced toward the rain outside before continuing. A woman carried a little boy out of that building before firefighters arrived. His pale eyes returned to mine slowly. That boy was me. The world tilted slightly. I laughed once under my breath because it sounded impossible. Absurd. No, yes. That does not make sense. It does to me. My fingers tightened around the edge of the table. Suddenly every instinct screamed at me to leave immediately. Not because he scared me anymore. Because he was becoming real. Real people were more dangerous than rumors. You tracked me down because my mother saved you. Vincent remained silent for a moment. At first. At first. The words unsettled me more than they should have. I looked away quickly, pretending to study the rain sliding down the windows. Across the street, black umbrellas moved through Manhattan crowds while headlights reflected silver across wet pavement. The city kept moving while my heartbeat refused to calm down. You could have just contacted us normally, I muttered. Most people do not send men to apartments at 3 in the morning. Something almost amused flickered briefly across his face. Most people cannot disappear the way your family did. I looked back at him sharply. We did not disappear. You changed states twice in 6 years. Your mother changed jobs 4 times. You stopped using your father's last name after age 10. My blood ran cold. You investigated my family. I protect what matters to me. The way he said it made my stomach twist unexpectedly. Too intimate. Too certain. You do not even know me. I know enough. His voice lowered slightly. You work too hard. You skip meals when money gets tight. You photograph other people falling in love while pretending loneliness does not bother you. I stared at him completely speechless now. Because every word was true. Vincent leaned forward slightly, forearms resting against the table. And despite everything life has done to your family, his eyes held mine steadily. You stayed kind. Nobody had ever said that to me before. Not like it mattered. Heat rose unexpectedly into my face and I hated it instantly. Vincent noticed. Of course he noticed. Men like him noticed everything. My phone buzzed suddenly against the table making me jump. A text from my landlord. Final notice. Rent overdue. I grabbed the phone too quickly trying to hide it, but Vincent had already seen enough. His expression changed instantly. Not pity. Something colder. More controlled. How much? That is none of your business. Claire. I said no. The firmness in my voice surprised even me. For the first time since sitting down, Vincent became very still. Then slowly, something dangerous softened in his eyes. Respect. Good, he said quietly. You should never let powerful men solve your problems too easily. I frowned. You are one of those powerful men. His gaze lingered on me another long second before he finally stood. 6'3" maybe. Tall enough that the entire room subtly shifted again the moment he moved. He reached into his coat pocket and placed a small silver key on the table beside my coffee. What is this? A safer apartment for your mother. My chest tightened immediately. I do not take gifts from strangers. Vincent looked down at me calmly. Then stopped thinking of me as a stranger. Before I could answer, his phone vibrated once in his pocket. He checked the screen briefly and something dark crossed his expression for the first time all morning. The warmth disappeared instantly. Back to marble. Back to ice. Vincent looked toward the rain outside. It seems, he said quietly, someone else has finally realized who you are too. The moment Vincent Moretti looked worried, the air inside the coffee shop changed completely. Until then, I had only seen control. Expensive control. Dangerous control. The kind powerful men wear like tailored suits. But now something colder moved beneath the surface. Something sharp enough to make my pulse spike instantly. Vincent slipped his phone back into his coat pocket slowly while his eyes scanned the street outside. What does that mean? I asked quietly. He did not answer immediately. That scared me more than if he had. Rain continued sliding down the windows behind him while people hurried through Manhattan beneath black umbrellas. Normal lives. Normal mornings. Yet suddenly I felt separated from all of it by invisible glass. Vincent picked up the silver apartment key from the table and pressed it gently toward me again. Take your mother somewhere safe today. Safe from who? His jaw tightened slightly. That is what I am trying to avoid. My heartbeat quickened hard. You are speaking like somebody is after me. His pale eyes returned to mine. Not after you. A pause. After leverage. I frowned. I do not understand. You do not need to. His voice stayed calm, but tension sat underneath every word now. Controlled urgency. You only need to trust me. I almost laughed at that. Trust you? I whispered. You had me investigated. Protected. Watched. Yes. Followed. Another pause. Yes. My chair scraped softly against the floor as I stood up too quickly. Several people glanced over before pretending not to notice. You cannot just appear in my life and start making decisions for me. Vincent stood too. Instantly. Effortlessly towering over me without seeming aggressive about it. Somehow that only made him more intimidating. Claire. No, I grabbed my camera bag tightly. I do not care who you are. I am not letting some billionaire mafia rumor tell me where to live. For the first time since meeting him, something almost dangerous flickered behind his eyes. Not anger at me. Fear. Real fear. You think this is about control, he said quietly. It is not. Then what is it about? His gaze held mine steadily while rain hammered against the windows hard enough to sound like applause. Keeping you alive long enough to explain everything. Silence crashed between us. My stomach dropped instantly. Alive? I repeated softly. Vincent glanced toward the street again. His attention sharpened suddenly. Focused. Predator stillness. Then his hand closed gently around my wrist. Not painful. Not forceful. Warm despite the cold weather outside. We are leaving now. Every nerve in my body reacted instantly. Do not touch me. I pulled back immediately, but Vincent did not tighten his grip. He released me the second I resisted. That should not have mattered. But it did. Men obsessed with control usually did not let go easily. Vincent stepped closer anyway, lowering his voice. There is a black Mercedes across the street. My pulse stumbled. So. It has been parked there since before you arrived. I turned automatically toward the window. Sure enough, a dark sedan sat half a block away beneath the rain. Tinted windows. Engine running. My stomach tightened. Maybe someone is waiting for coffee. Maybe. Vincent looked unconvinced. Or maybe they are waiting to confirm your face. Cold spread through me slowly. I hated that part of me already believed him. Why would anyone care about me? His eyes softened briefly. Because 20 years ago, your mother saved the wrong child from the wrong fire. Before I could respond, the coffee shop door opened behind us. Wind and rain swept inside sharply. Every instinct in Vincent changed instantly. His posture straightened. Eyes alert. Dangerous in a way I had only heard about in whispers online. Two men entered wearing dark coats. Expensive. Calm. One of them looked directly at me before his expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Recognition. Vincent noticed too. Of course he did. Time slowed strangely after that. The espresso machine hissing. Rain tapping glass. My own heartbeat roaring inside my ears. Vincent moved closer beside me until his shoulder almost brushed mine. Protective without touching. Claire, he said quietly, never taking his eyes off the men near the entrance. I need you to listen carefully. Fear crawled slowly up my spine. Why? His voice dropped lower. Colder. Because if those men recognize you before we leave this building, he finally looked at me then. Completely serious. Everything changes. My entire life, I had trusted my instincts around dangerous people. New York teaches women that early. The late-night subway stare that lasts too long. The stranger who walks too closely behind you. The man whose smile feels wrong before his words ever do. But standing beside Vincent Moretti inside that coffee shop, I realized something terrifying. The most dangerous person in the room was also the only one trying to protect me. The two men near the entrance removed rain from their coats slowly while scanning the room with careful eyes. One of them reached into his pocket, pulling out a phone. Vincent shifted slightly closer beside me. Not enough to trap me. Just enough that I could feel warmth radiating from his coat sleeve. Do not look at them again, he said quietly. Too late. Then act normal. My pulse hammered painfully. I do not know how to act normal right now. A faint almost smile touched the corner of his mouth despite the tension in his eyes. Neither do I. That answer caught me off guard enough to glance at him. Vincent remained focused on the men near the entrance, but something softer had entered his expression for half a second. Human. Then it disappeared again. Who are they? I whispered. People I hoped would not find you yet. Yet. The words settled heavily inside my chest. Before I could ask anything else, one of the men by the entrance started walking slowly toward the back of the coffee shop. Toward us. Every muscle in Vincent's body tightened instantly. Not panic. Calculation. The man approaching looked wealthy enough to belong in Manhattan without attracting attention. Dark wool coat. Silver watch. Calm face. But his eyes moved too carefully. Watching exits. Watching reflections in windows. Watching me. Fear crawled coldly through my stomach. Vincent leaned closer slightly. When I stand up, walk toward the kitchen hallway. What? Do not argue with me. Right now, Claire. The quiet authority in his voice sent heat straight through my nerves. I hated that part of me already wanted to listen. You still have not explained any of this. I know. His eyes stayed locked on the approaching man. And I will. But first I need to get you somewhere secure. Secure with you? Finally Vincent looked directly at me. Pale blue eyes. Exhausted somehow beneath all the control. Yes. The honesty in that single word shook me more than lies would have. Before I could answer, the approaching man suddenly paused 3 tables away. His expression shifted almost imperceptibly as his eyes settled fully on my face. Recognition. Vincent saw it instantly. So did I. Everything changed after that. Vincent stood smoothly beside me, one hand brushing lightly against the center of my back. Guiding. Protective. Not possessive. Now, he said quietly. I moved automatically toward the hallway behind the counter while confused employees stared at us. My heartbeat thundered so loudly I barely heard the rain anymore. Behind me, I caught fragments of conversation. Calm voices. Controlled tension. Then footsteps. Fast ones. Claire. Vincent's voice cut sharply through the noise. I turned instinctively. Big mistake. The man near the tables had moved closer now, staring directly at me with narrowed eyes while speaking quickly into an earpiece beneath his collar. Panic surged hard through my chest. Vincent reached me in 3 long strides and took my hand for the first time. Completely. Fingers closing around mine firmly enough to steady me. Keep walking. His voice stayed low. Deadly calm. We pushed through a service exit into a narrow alley behind the coffee shop where freezing rain hit my face instantly. Black SUVs lined the curb outside already. Doors open. Engines running. Everything moved too fast after that. Men in dark coats surrounding us carefully without touching me. Traffic hissing through wet streets. Vincent guiding me toward the nearest vehicle while scanning every rooftop and intersection like he expected the city itself to attack him. Vincent, I whispered shakily. Tell me what is happening. He opened the SUV door for me before answering. Rainwater slid down his dark hair now, softening him somehow despite the steel in his expression. 20 years ago, he said quietly, your mother saved my life. His eyes held mine intensely beneath the gray Manhattan sky. And today you became the most valuable person in mine. The first thing I noticed inside Vincent Moretti's SUV was the silence. Not awkward silence. Controlled silence. The kind wealthy powerful people create around themselves naturally, like the world learns not to interrupt them. Rain streaked across the tinted windows while Manhattan blurred past outside in silver and gold reflections. Nobody inside the vehicle spoke. 2 men sat in the front seats watching traffic carefully while Vincent sat beside me in the back close enough that I could feel the warmth from his coat sleeve every time the SUV turned. Yet he never touched me again. That mattered more than it should have. My pulse still had not settled from the coffee shop. My mother does not know where I am, I said finally. Vincent pulled out his phone immediately. Call her. I blinked at him. That simple? You expected me to stop you? Honestly, yes. Men with his reputation were not supposed to hand terrified women phones calmly inside luxury SUVs. Vincent noticed my hesitation instantly. Claire. His voice softened slightly. You are not my prisoner. Something about those words hurt unexpectedly because part of me had already feared they were not true. I called my mother with shaking fingers anyway. She answered on the second ring sounding breathless. Claire. Where are you? I glanced toward Vincent instinctively before answering. I am okay. Men came to the apartment. Cold shot through my body instantly. What? Vincent's entire posture sharpened beside me. Two men asking questions, my mother whispered quickly. I did not open the door. Vincent held out his hand silently asking for the phone. I hesitated only half a second before giving it to him. Mrs. Bennet. His voice became calm in a way that somehow made him sound even more powerful. This is Vincent Moretti. Silence on the other end. Then my mother inhaled sharply enough that I heard it through the speaker. Vincent's eyes narrowed slightly. You remember me? Another silence. Longer this time. I remember your eyes, my mother whispered faintly. Every hair along my arms lifted instantly. Vincent looked out the rain-covered window for a second before speaking again. I am sending security to move you somewhere safer. No, her answer came fast. Fearfully fast. Vincent's jaw tightened. Mrs. Bennet, they promised me they would never look for her. The words hit the inside of the SUV like ice water. My heartbeat stumbled hard. Mom, I whispered. Who promised you? Vincent looked at me slowly then. Something dark moved behind his pale eyes. Recognition maybe. Or realization. Do not say anything else over the phone, he said quietly to her. We will be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call before either of us could protest. My chest tightened painfully. What does she mean they promised not to look for me? Vincent stayed silent too long. Vincent. I think your mother has been hiding more from you than either of us realized. Rain hammered harder against the SUV roof while traffic lights painted red and gold across his face. For the first time since meeting him, Vincent looked unsettled. Truly unsettled. You already knew about the fire, I said slowly. What else do you know? He exhaled quietly before answering. Your mother saved me from a warehouse fire controlled by a crime family called the Volkov Syndicate. The unfamiliar name sent cold through me anyway. Crime family. Russian organization. His eyes remained fixed ahead now. Very dangerous people. I stared at him in disbelief. You are talking like this is normal. For me, it is. Fair point again. I hated how often that happened around him. Why would my mother be involved with people like that? Vincent finally looked at me directly. That, he said quietly, is the question I have spent 20 years trying to answer. The SUV slowed beneath the glowing awning of my apartment building. Rain poured heavily across cracked sidewalks and flickering streetlights outside. But something felt wrong immediately. Too many cars. Too many people standing near the entrance pretending not to watch the street. Vincent noticed too. His expression hardened instantly into something cold enough to freeze the entire vehicle. One of the men in front spoke sharply into an earpiece. The driver locked the doors automatically. Fear surged through my chest so fast it almost hurt. Vincent. He reached for my hand again before I even realized I was shaking. Firm. Steady. Protective. His thumb brushed lightly across my knuckles once. Stay beside me, he said quietly. Then his pale eyes lifted toward the apartment building where shadows moved behind rain-covered windows. Because whoever arrived before us, his jaw tightened slightly, did not come to talk. There are moments when your body understands danger before your mind catches up. Sitting beside Vincent Moretti inside the black SUV, watching unfamiliar men linger near my apartment building in the freezing rain, every instinct inside me screamed the same thing. Do not get out of this car. Vincent released my hand slowly only to reach for his phone again. Calm movements. Controlled breathing. But tension rolled off him now in waves sharp enough to feel. Luca, he said quietly into the phone, nobody enters the building until I do. A pause. His eyes remained fixed on the apartment entrance. I know. Another pause. Then colder. That is exactly why I do not trust it. He ended the call and looked at me. Your mother is still inside. Panic hit instantly. Then why are we sitting here? I reached for the door handle automatically, but Vincent caught my wrist before I could move. Firm. Fast. Protective. Claire. The sound of my name in his voice stopped me completely. If you run into that building without understanding what is happening, I cannot protect you. I stared at him breathlessly. Rain streaked down the windows between us and the city outside while headlights painted moving gold across his face. Then explain it to me. Vincent stayed silent for half a second too long. 20 years ago, your mother witnessed something she should not have survived. Cold spread through my chest. The warehouse fire. He nodded once. The Volkov syndicate used that building for financial records and transportation routes. Transportation routes for what? His jaw tightened. Things better left unsaid. Fair enough. I swallowed hard. And my mother saved you there? Yes. His pale eyes darkened slightly with memory. I was 10 years old. Something about hearing that shook me unexpectedly. Vincent Moretti as a frightened child trapped inside a burning building did not fit the man sitting beside me now. Why were you there? I whispered. Vincent looked away briefly toward the rain. Because my father made the mistake of trusting the wrong people. Silence filled the SUV heavily after that. The kind of silence built from old pain. Then he looked back at me again. Your mother got me out before the fire spread. His voice softened almost imperceptibly. But someone saw her face. My stomach dropped instantly. The Volkov people. Yes. So she spent 20 years hiding from them? Vincent nodded slowly. And from me. That part hurt him somehow. I could see it now. Beneath all the expensive control and terrifying reputation, Vincent had spent 20 years searching for the woman who saved his life. Searching for us. Before I could answer, movement near the apartment entrance caught his attention instantly. One of the men outside stepped away from the building while speaking into an earpiece. Another black sedan pulled up behind us slowly. Tinted windows. No license plate visible through the rain. Every man inside Vincent's SUV became alert at once. The driver adjusted his mirror. The passenger reached subtly beneath his coat. Fear crawled sharply through me. Vincent noticed immediately. Look at me. I did. Big mistake. Because suddenly he was too close. Pale blue eyes steady on mine while the storm outside disappeared completely for one impossible second. Whatever happens next, he said quietly, you stay beside me. My pulse stumbled hard. Vincent, I mean it, Claire. The softness vanished from his face again. Back to steel. Back to danger. You are not safe alone anymore. Before I could respond, my phone suddenly rang in my coat pocket. Unknown number. Every person inside the SUV froze. Slowly, Vincent held out his hand. Do not answer it. But the phone kept ringing. Loud now. Relentless. Fear twisted painfully in my chest. What if it is my mother? Vincent looked at the screen for 1 second and his expression changed instantly. Ice cold. It is not your mother. How do you know? His eyes lifted slowly to mine. Because only 3 people have this number. A beat of silence. Rain hammering the roof. Engines idling around us. Then Vincent answered the phone himself without breaking eye contact with me. Speak. The voice on the other end said something too low for me to hear. But whatever it was made Vincent go completely still. Dangerous still. The kind before storms break cities apart. His jaw tightened once before he finally spoke again. Quiet. Deadly calm. If anyone touches Claire Bennett, he said softly, there will not be a corner of this city safe enough to hide you. The terrifying thing about powerful men is not how cold they can become. It is how terrifyingly calm they stay when something matters to them. Vincent lowered the phone slowly after the call ended, but the silence inside the SUV felt heavier now. Dangerous. The rain outside had intensified, turning Manhattan into a blur of silver lights and dark reflections. Nobody inside the vehicle moved. Even the men in the front seats waited for Vincent to speak first. That told me everything about who he really was. What did they say? I whispered. Vincent kept staring through the rain-covered window toward my apartment building. Your mother is gone. My chest stopped. Gone. Someone moved her before we arrived. Panic surged instantly through every nerve in my body. I reached for the door handle again. I have to find her. Vincent caught my wrist immediately. Claire. Let me go. Listen to me. His voice stayed calm, but steel tightened beneath every word now. Your mother left willingly. I froze. How do you know that? Because if she had been taken, the apartment building would not still have lights on. I stared at him in confusion. Vincent exhaled quietly before explaining. Fear leaves signs. His pale eyes shifted toward mine again. And your mother has been surviving fear longer than either of us realized. I wanted to argue. Wanted to scream at him to stop speaking in riddles. But deep down I already knew he was right. My mother had sounded terrified on the phone earlier. Not surprised. Terrified. Like she had always known this day might come. Vincent's phone buzzed again. This time he ignored it completely. His attention stayed locked on me instead. Claire. The softness in his voice made my chest tighten unexpectedly. Your mother disappeared to protect you. From who? From the people who finally realized who you are. I shook my head immediately. I am nobody. Vincent's expression changed slightly at that. Almost sad. No, he said quietly. You are the daughter of the only woman who ever risked her life for mine. The words settled into me slowly while rain hammered against the SUV roof above us. 20 years. My mother had spent 20 years hiding secrets big enough to terrify men like Vincent Moretti. And somehow I had been living inside those secrets my entire life without knowing. Why did you really search for me? I asked finally. Vincent looked away toward the city lights outside before answering. At first. He gave a faint humorless smile. Debt. I frowned. Debt? Your mother saved me. His voice lowered. In my world, debts matter. That is not the whole truth anymore though, is it? Silence filled the SUV heavily after that. Vincent looked back at me slowly. Really looked at me. Not the photograph version. Not the girl from the fire escape memory 20 years ago. Me. Claire Bennett sitting terrified beside him in a rainstorm while New York blurred around us. No, he admitted quietly. My heartbeat stumbled hard. Then what changed? Vincent studied me for one impossible second too long before answering. You did. Every sound inside the SUV disappeared after that. Rain. Traffic. Engines. All gone beneath the weight of those two words. Vincent reached into his coat slowly and pulled out the faded childhood photograph again. The one with the flower shop. The one he had apparently carried with him for years. His thumb brushed lightly across the worn edge before he handed it to me. I spent 2 decades remembering the woman who saved my life, he said softly. Then I found her daughter. My throat tightened painfully. Vincent, and suddenly revenge stopped mattering. The honesty in his voice frightened me more than his power ever had. Because dangerous men do not survive by becoming vulnerable. Yet here he was anyway. Looking at me like I had somehow become the one thing in his life he could not control. Outside, thunder rolled above Manhattan while headlights streaked across rain-covered streets. The city felt enormous. Cold. Unforgiving. But inside that SUV, Vincent Moretti reached for my trembling hand one final time. Slower this time. Giving me every chance to pull away. I did not. His fingers closed carefully around mine while his pale blue eyes held my gaze with terrifying sincerity. I never wanted a wife, he said quietly. Until the moment I saw your face.